Racist gym bully smirks as he calls security on a black teen, until the kid drops his Navy SEAL ID on the counter. What happened next restored faith in justice. Before we continue, I'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Comment below. The sky outside the wide gym windows was painted with soft streaks of orange and pink, the early morning light barely waking the sleepy town. The neighborhood was quiet. The streets outside were lined with trimmed bushes and quiet homes, the kind where trouble never seemed to come, at least not loudly. Inside the upscale gym, the lights buzzed faintly. The scent of eucalyptus floated in the air, mixing with the sharp smell of rubber from the mats. Machines clicked quietly, and soft music drifted from hidden speakers. Jordan Miles sat on the floor in the far corner of the gym. He was stretching slowly, carefully, like he had done this 1,000 times before. He wore a grey hoodie and plain black joggers, his face calm, focused. His skin was smooth, his clean fade haircut sharp, his body lean and muscular, built with discipline, not ego. He did not speak to anyone. He did not need to. Most people were still waking up, dragging their feet to treadmills or sipping water like coffee. Jordan stayed quiet, nodding once to a man who passed with a towel over his shoulder. Across the room, a little girl giggled as she stood beside a vending machine, tugging on her dad's arm. Jordan smiled softly at her, just for a second. Then he looked down, pulling his leg tighter into the stretch. No one here knew who he really was. No one recognized the strength hidden beneath his silence. He had been gone for over a year, home on leave for just 2 weeks, a Navy SEAL, 19 years old, and already part of one of the most elite forces in the world. But here, in this gym, in this town, he was just another kid in a hoodie, just another face people could ignore or misjudge if they chose to. Jordan liked it that way. He did not need attention. What he needed was a moment to breathe, to be normal, to feel like himself again, even if it was only between sets of push-ups and laps on the track. He had seen things, heard things, done things that would make the average man freeze. But this gym was quiet, safe, familiar. He missed his mum's voice in the kitchen. She always sang old soul songs while cooking breakfast, humming with the rhythm of a life built on faith and hard work. She would be up by now, making grits and eggs, probably waiting for him to come home from the gym with a gallon of orange juice and a tired smile. He missed his sister too, 12 years old, wild and brilliant, always cracking jokes, always asking him to teach her spy moves. She had cried the hardest when he left for boot camp. Then there was his father. Jordan paused mid-stretch, letting the thought pass slowly through him like a cold wind. His dad had died just before he left for training. A quiet man, proud but gentle, who had taught Jordan how to shake a man's hand and look him in the eye. Who taught him to walk tall, but not loud. Jordan still carried that weight. Every mile he ran, every breath he held underwater, every silent tear shed in the dark corners of the barracks. His father had shaped him, and now he carried that strength in his bones. He stood now, rolling his shoulders as he walked over to the free weights. The gym lights flickered slightly as the early sun glinted off the mirrors. No one gave him more than a passing glance. He liked it that way. He placed his towel down neatly, adjusted the plates, and began to lift. Each movement was precise, not for show, not for pride, but for control. The gym was peaceful this morning, the way he hoped it would stay. But not all storms make noise when they enter the room, and this morning, peace would not last. The gym's glass doors swung open with a loud clap as a tall, broad-shouldered man stepped inside. His boots thudded against the tile. His tank top clung tightly to his chest, showing off thick, veiny arms, and across his shirt stretched the image of a bald eagle clutching an American flag. Rick Dalton, late 40s, loud. Red in the face like he had just come from yelling at traffic or drinking too much coffee. He looked around with the air of someone who believed the room belonged to him. Jordan, halfway through a round on the punching bag, barely noticed. Rick's eyes scanned the gym until they landed on Jordan. His smirk curled. He leaned toward a man by the water fountain and muttered something under his breath, just loud enough to hear the tone, not the words. The other man glanced over his shoulder at Jordan and gave a tight, awkward chuckle. Jordan caught it. He had learned to catch everything. Shifts in tone, glances, murmurs, like a second sense built from years of needing to know when things might turn. Still, he kept going. His fists hit the bag with quiet precision, not for anger, for rhythm, for breath, for control. Rick began walking across the gym. His boots squeaked with each step, arms crossed now, chest puffed. He stopped 2 feet from Jordan, staring him down like he was checking ID at the door. "Hey, kid," Rick said, his voice thick with false authority. "Members only. No guests during peak hours." Jordan slowed his punches, let the bag swing gently before catching it. "I have a membership," he said, turning to face the man. His voice was calm, clear, no attitude, just truth. Rick raised his eyebrows like he had just heard a joke. "Sure you do," he said, his lips curling again. Then his tone dropped, colder now. "You people always sneaking in." The room changed. Machines kept moving, but slower. Conversation dimmed. One woman on the elliptical looked over her shoulder. A man paused his set mid-rep. The silence after that sentence rang louder than any punch Jordan had thrown. Jordan's jaw tightened. Not in fear, in restraint. His body stayed still. His breathing remained steady. His eyes did not narrow, and he did not flinch. He just looked at Rick, long enough for the weight of that sentence to settle in the air. Then he turned, picked up his towel, and walked away. Not a word more. He passed by the front desk, where a young staff member leaned against the counter, half watching. The staff member had heard it. That much was clear. But he said nothing. Did nothing. Jordan walked toward the other side of the gym, shoulders square, heart pounding. Not from rage, from the pressure of holding back, from the ache of being seen as something he was not. Again. His mind shouted 1,000 replies, 1,000 truths, 1,000 reasons why that man was wrong, and how easily he could prove it. But he had learned something harder than fighting, the art of silence. Still, silence did not mean peace, and this time it did not mean weakness. It meant pain. Real pain. The kind that grows from knowing that even when you carry the title of Navy SEAL, even when you fight for the country printed across Rick's shirt, some people still only see a threat, a hoodie, a body, a target, not a person, not a protector, not a son, not a brother, just someone they want out. And the worst part, everyone heard, but no one said a word. The clink of weights echoed across the gym floor as Jordan moved quietly to the bench press area. He wiped down the bench with his towel, placed his phone beside him, and began adjusting the plates with care. His breathing had settled. His thoughts were still sharp, but buried deep behind his eyes. He just wanted to finish the workout and leave. But peace, once broken, does not return so easily. Rick Dalton was back. This time his footsteps came faster. He moved like a man itching for control. Jordan felt him before he saw him. Rick stepped into his path, blocking the weight rack with both arms crossed. His jaw was tight. His eyes dared Jordan to challenge him. "I said leave," Rick growled, "before I call security." Jordan stood still, eyes meeting his. "I paid to be here," he said, voice steady. Rick's nostrils flared. "You think I will let someone like you scare people here?" he barked. Then, without warning, he grabbed Jordan's arm. It was not a hard grip, but it was a message. The gym fell into a strange, heavy silence. Even the music felt quieter. Jordan froze. He did not pull away. He just looked at the hand wrapped around his arm, like it was proof of everything he had ever been warned about. Like his father's words had just come to life. Across the room, a man stopped mid-curl. Two teenagers paused their run on the treadmill. A woman near the stretching area leaned to her friend and whispered, "Why does he not just leave?" The question stung more than the hand on his arm. Then came footsteps, sharp, fast, and pointed. Carrie, the manager, emerged from the office. Late 30s, tied-back hair, a clipboard still in her hand. Her eyes darted to Rick, then to Jordan. She took a breath, then spoke. "Sir, we are asking you to leave," she said quickly. "You are making people uncomfortable." Jordan blinked. Wait. She was talking to him. Rick let go of his arm and stepped back, with a smug smirk, as if the courtroom had just ruled in his favor. Jordan looked around. No one spoke up. No one said, "That man grabbed him first." No one spoke up. No one said, "That man grabbed him first." No one said, "He did nothing wrong." No one stood. He was alone. "You do not even know what happened," Jordan said quietly, voice barely above the hum of the air conditioner. "I do not want a scene," Carrie replied. Her voice was softer now, less sure, but still firm. Her eyes darted to the watching crowd, to the cell phone in someone's hand, to the tension she did not understand, but wanted gone. Jordan nodded once. He reached for his towel, picked up his phone, and stepped away from the bench. Carrie walked beside him, saying nothing more. Rick stayed near the dumbbells, victorious, arms folded across his chest like he had just guarded a castle. The doors opened. Cool air hit Jordan's face as he stepped outside. He stood on the sidewalk, eyes toward the parking lot, chest rising and falling. His fists were clenched, not because he wanted to fight, but because it hurt. All of it. The silence from the people who watched, the hand on his arm, the assumption, the way the manager never even asked what happened, the way it felt like the truth did not matter, only comfort. And comfort, apparently, meant removing him. He had gone through fire to earn his place in this world, trained with the best, passed the test, wore the uniform with pride. But right now, none of it mattered. Not to them. They did not see him. They only saw what they wanted to believe, and what they feared. He closed his eyes. The sun had started to rise higher, and the warmth touched his skin, but it did not reach his heart. His breath caught for a moment. Not from rage, but from grief. It was a different kind of pain, the kind that grows when you know speaking up might make things worse, and staying quiet costs you a part of your soul. He let the silence stretch. He let the ache settle in. Have you ever stayed silent just to keep the peace, even when you were right? Jordan had, and this time, it had burned deeper than most. Jordan sat in his car, parked beneath a bare oak tree near the edge of the gym parking lot. The engine was off. The gym lights behind him flickered through the rearview mirror, cold and distant. His hands rested on the steering wheel, still, but tense. The heat from the sun had not yet warmed the dashboard. Everything felt stuck, like the day had broken in half. He stared forward, unblinking. Then, slowly, a memory returned. It had been 5 years ago. He was 14. The sky had looked almost the same. Light blue, clear, innocent. Jordan had been riding his bike home from the corner store, a bag of chips stuffed in the basket, music playing from a small speaker clipped to the handlebars. That was when the patrol car turned the corner. The officer had rolled down his window. "Hey! Stop right there!" Jordan remembered the sudden cold in his chest, the way the tires of his bike skidded against the sidewalk as he stopped too fast. The bag of chips fell. The music kept playing, too soft to be a threat, too loud to ignore. "Where did you get that bike?" the officer asked, stepping out, hand near his belt. Jordan stammered. "It is mine. My dad got it for me." Got a receipt? He had none. He had never needed one. The officer stepped closer, reaching for the handlebars. Jordan had taken one small step back, and that was when his father's voice cut through the street like thunder. "Is there a problem, officer?" Mr. Miles stood tall in the doorway of their small home, hands calm, but face tight. He had the look of a man who had walked through this before, who knew every next move before it came. The officer froze, looked between Jordan and his father, then cleared his throat. "No issue. Just checking," he muttered. He backed off, walked to his car, drove away. Jordan remembered the sound of his heartbeat, the sharp cold that came after. That night his father sat beside him on the porch steps. The street was quiet. Porch lights flickered gently, casting shadows across the sidewalk. "Listen to me, son," his father had said, voice low. "People will not always see you the way I do. Some will see your skin before they see your heart, before they see your name, before they hear your story." Jordan had looked down. "But you do not let that shape you," his father continued. "You hear me? You walk tall. You keep your peace. But you do not shrink for anyone." Those words had carved themselves into Jordan's soul. When his father died 2 years later, a sudden stroke, no warning, those words became something more. They became his armor. At 17, Jordan enlisted. Not because he loved war, not because he wanted to run from home, but because he needed to become something bigger than the fear, bigger than the silence, bigger than the labels they threw at him without knowing him. Navy SEAL training was brutal. Some days he threw up from exhaustion. Other days he nearly drowned. But he never gave up. He kept a photo of his father inside his locker, his dad in a denim jacket, smiling like he knew the world could not beat him. Every mile Jordan ran, every wave he pushed through, every freezing push-up in the mud, he did it with his father's voice in his head. "You do not shrink for anyone." Now, sitting in that parked car, Jordan pressed his forehead against the steering wheel. He had survived battles most people would never face. But today, a few words, a stare, a hand on his arm, had sliced something deeper than any battlefield. He was not just angry. He was tired. Tired of proving himself. Tired of the silence. Tired of the way people still thought they knew his story before he opened his mouth. And maybe, for a second, he had thought about letting it go. Letting it pass. But something inside him whispered louder now. "I cannot let this happen again. Not to him. Not to anyone like him. Not in silence. Not this time." The sun had climbed higher now, warming the pavement outside the gym. But Jordan did not feel the heat. He sat still behind the wheel, hands resting in his lap, eyes locked on nothing. He had stopped shaking. The rage had passed. Now there was only silence, and beneath it, something stronger. Focus. Jordan reached over to the passenger seat and grabbed his phone. His fingers hovered for a moment, then tapped a name from his contacts. Cam, SEAL teammate. He had not spoken to Cam in a few weeks. They trained together in California, went through Hell Week side by side, and promised to always look out for one another, no matter what. The phone rang twice. "Yo, Miles," Cam answered, his voice rough like he had just woken up. "You busy?" "Nah, what is up?" Jordan looked out the windshield at the gym sign in the distance, then down at his clenched fist. "I need a favor." There was a short pause. "You good?" "I will be," Jordan said. "Can you send me a copy of our team verification? That service letter from the commander, too." Cam's voice straightened. "Someone giving you trouble?" Jordan exhaled slowly. "Yeah, but they have no idea who they are talking to." Cam whistled low. "Sending it now, man. You want me to fly in?" Jordan smiled, just a little. "Number I need to do this alone." They talked for another minute. Then Jordan hung up and stared at his reflection in the phone screen. His father's voice echoed again. "You do not shrink for anyone." Later that day, Jordan stood in front of his closet at home. His sister was still at school. His mom was cooking downstairs, humming a gospel song he recognized from childhood. He reached up and pulled down a folded uniform from the top shelf. Crisp, clean. The American flag patch still sewn above the heart. His Navy SEAL badge catching light from the window. He had not worn it since the last mission. It still smelled faintly of sea salt and discipline. Beside it, he laid out his paperwork, his Department of Defense ID, his team certification, a letter signed by his commanding officer thanking him for exceptional service. He slid them into a duffel bag with care, not as weapons, as truth. No yelling, no fists, no cameras, just facts. He sat on the edge of his bed for a while, watching the light shift across the floorboards. His mind was clear. There was no revenge in his heart, only purpose. Later that night, Jordan went for a walk. He wore a hoodie again, this time with the hood pulled up. The streets were quiet, the wind brushing against his face like a calm before something deeper. He passed homes with porch lights glowing. He passed silence. He passed peace. But inside, he carried the storm. At the edge of the neighborhood, he paused beneath a street lamp, looked up at the sky. Stars blinked faintly above, distant and steady. He whispered one word. Tomorrow. He did not need an army. He did not need anger. He just needed the truth to stand beside him. And it would, in the morning. Let them see who he really was. The next morning arrived with sharp light and a colder wind. Jordan stood outside the gym doors, duffel bag over one shoulder, his face calm, steady. He wore the same grey hoodie, same plain joggers. Nothing about him looked different from yesterday. But everything inside him had changed. He stepped through the automatic doors and into the same lobby, where the silence had once swallowed him whole. It was busy now. Members walked in and out, sipping protein shakes, chatting near the front desk. A few looked his way and paused, unsure, remembering. Jordan walked straight to the counter. Carrie, the manager, stood behind it, sorting papers. She looked up and froze. "Jordan," she said quickly, voice tight. I was going to call." "I need to speak with Rick Dalton," Jordan said, calm but firm. "Is he here?" Carrie hesitated. "He is lifting in the back." Jordan nodded. "Call him and bring him here." Carrie swallowed. Her eyes flicked to the duffel bag in Jordan's hand. She hesitated, then picked up the walkie-talkie. A minute later, Rick appeared, towel slung over his shoulder, face red from lifting. He smirked the moment he saw Jordan. "Back again?" he said loudly. "I thought we already had this talk." Jordan set the duffel bag on the counter and unzipped it. "I am not here for talk," he said. The room quieted. People began watching. The front desk staff, a man doing stretches nearby, a couple stepping off the treadmills. Jordan pulled out a crisp navy blue uniform, folded with precision. On the chest was his name, Miles. On the shoulder, the American flag. Above the pocket, the emblem of the Navy SEALs, sharp, unmistakable. Next, he removed his Department of Defense ID and placed it gently on the counter. "I am Jordan Miles," he said, voice steady. "I serve as an active-duty Navy SEAL in the United States military. I am not a guest. I am not a stranger. I am a protector of this country, including every person in this room." The silence deepened. Rick's face shifted. The smirk melted, replaced by something uncertain. Jordan continued, pulling out a letter printed on official government stationery. The Department of Defense seal gleamed in the light. "This is a letter from my commanding officer confirming my current service and recognition for leadership under pressure." Carrie stared at the letter, her lips parted but speechless. Rick's mouth opened, then closed. His eyes jumped from the uniform to the badge to the crowd behind Jordan, a crowd that was growing more alert by the second. "You said I was sneaking in," Jordan said, not looking at Rick now but speaking to the room. "You said I did not belong." He lifted his gaze slowly, eyes sweeping across the gym lobby. "Yesterday, not one of you asked who I was. Not one of you stood up when I was pushed. You just watched. And I walked away. To keep peace." He turned to Carrie. "You told me I was making people uncomfortable." She looked like she wanted to shrink behind the desk. Jordan paused. "I was taught that respect is not loud. It is not pride. It is truth." He stepped back from the counter, letting the uniform and documents remain in full view. Rick looked like he had aged 10 years in 5 minutes. His arms hung limp at his sides. I did not know," he mumbled. Jordan looked at him now, really looked. "You did not care to know." Rick's jaw moved, searching for words, but none came. From behind, someone clapped once. The sound was sharp, echoing through the tension. Then another, and another. By the time Jordan looked back, half the lobby was watching, nodding, quietly applauding. Carrie took a breath, stepping forward. We owe you an apology," she said. "I owe you an apology." Jordan said nothing. He did not need to. The truth had already spoken for him. He turned, picked up his duffel, and walked slowly toward the exit. The doors opened automatically, letting in a rush of cool air. As he stepped outside, the sun hit his face, warm and clean. The wind lifted the corner of the folded uniform in his bag. Behind him, the gym stood still. No longer his battlefield, but his witness. He had come in silent, and left stronger than any shout could have made him. What would you have done in Jordan's shoes? Would you have walked away? Or walked back in? The video hit the internet that same evening. Someone in the gym had recorded the entire moment. Jordan's calm voice, the Navy SEAL uniform on the counter, the silence that followed his words. It spread fast. By morning, the comments had filled with shock, support, and outrage. This is what quiet strength looks like. Man handled it like a true soldier. Shame on that gym. America needs more men like him. By noon, the gym released a public statement. They confirmed that Rick Dalton had been banned from the facility indefinitely. "We do not tolerate discrimination in any form," the post read. "We deeply regret how Mr. Miles was treated and are reviewing all staff protocols to ensure this never happens again." But Jordan was not watching the news. He was not reading comments. He was sitting at the kitchen table with his mother and sister, stirring sugar into his coffee, listening to them talk about their day. His mother finally looked up from her plate. "Did it feel like enough?" she asked gently. Jordan paused, his spoon tapping the rim of the cup. "No," he said softly, "but it is a start." That afternoon, Carrie called his phone. He let it ring twice before answering. "Jordan, I just wanted to say I am sorry," she began. "Truly." He said nothing, allowing the silence to speak for him. "We were wrong," she continued. "I was wrong. I assumed things I had no right to assume. If there is anything we can do to make it right." "There is nothing to make right," Jordan said, calm. "Just make sure the next person does not have to prove their worth to be believed." Carrie's voice cracked. "We are starting new training, bias education, behavior policy updates. We are even renaming a scholarship in your honor, the Miles Grant, for young veterans in the area." Jordan blinked. That part he had not expected. "We want people to know who you are," she added. He looked out the window as wind moved through the branches of the backyard tree. "I do not need a name on a wall," he said. "Just make sure it means something." "Of course," she whispered. She thanked him again before hanging up. The next day, Jordan walked through town. A man at the corner store nodded at him respectfully. A woman who had seen the video handed him a thank you note. No attention-seeking, just quiet moments of correction. People had begun to see him, not just the uniform, but the person. One evening, a local news station called to request an interview. Jordan finally agreed. He wore a plain shirt, sat on a simple chair, no medals, no spotlight. When the reporter asked what message he hoped people took away from all this, he looked directly into the camera and answered, "I want young people, especially young black kids, to know they do not have to yell to be strong. Sometimes your silence, your calm, your truth speaks louder than fists." He paused, then added, "But silence does not mean we disappear. We are still here, and we deserve to be seen." The anchor ended the segment in tears, and in that quiet, powerful truth, something began to change. The wind was softer now. Jordan sat on a wooden bench at the edge of the park, the one that overlooked the quiet lake where the ducks always gathered in the afternoon. His little sister sat beside him, tossing small pieces of bread into the water, laughing every time one of the ducks flapped its wings too hard. The sky was open, wide, painted with gentle clouds that drifted like thoughts too heavy to hold, but too light to keep down. Jordan leaned back, one arm resting on the bench, the other holding a paper cup of lemonade. He wore no uniform, no logos, just himself. His sister leaned her head against his shoulder. "You ever gonna tell me what happened at that gym?" she asked quietly, her voice soft, almost teasing. He looked down at her and smiled. "One day," he replied. "Maybe." She nodded, then threw another crumb into the lake. A duck splashed so hard it soaked the edge of the grass, and they both laughed. Their laughter faded into a calm silence. Jordan's eyes drifted across the water, watching how the ripples moved outward, touching everything, even the farthest edges. He thought about the day it happened, about the silence, the looks, the judgment. He thought about his dad, about how proud he might have been. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small folded photo. It was old, worn at the corners, his father in a denim jacket, standing in front of their old truck, smiling like he knew exactly who he was. Jordan looked at it for a moment, then slid it back into his pocket. He had always thought strength meant standing tall or walking away from the fight. But now he knew something different. Strength was showing up, even when the room did not welcome you, even when the truth made others uncomfortable, even when no one stood with you, especially then. He had gone back not to prove something, but to remember who he was, to remind the world that dignity is not something people give you. It is something you carry, and it is heavier than most can lift. A breeze swept across the lake, ruffling his hoodie. His sister reached over and placed her hand on his. "You good?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "I am good." They sat there a while longer, the world quiet around them, the sun warming their skin. And as the light danced on the water, Jordan closed his eyes. He was not looking for justice anymore. He had already found something better. Peace.